Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about a woman's journey towards wisdom, resilience, and the courage it takes to protect her inner peace. It's not about confrontation or loud declarations. It's about quiet strength and the profound decisions we make in the face of relationships that drain us, confuse us, or threaten our growth. Boundaries are the invisible lines we draw around ourselves to protect our time, energy, and emotions. They are not walls designed to keep others out, but are carefully crafted lines of respect that guide how we want to be treated and what we are willing to tolerate in our relationships. The power of boundaries lies not in the force with which they are drawn, but in the clarity, self-respect, and peace they bring into our lives. A wise woman understands that without boundaries, she will be at the mercy of other people's demands, expectations, and manipulations. Boundaries are a form of self-love, and they are essential for maintaining our well-being, sense of identity, and personal growth. But understanding their importance is only part of the journey. The real work is in setting and maintaining them. Boundaries as an act of self-respect. At their core, boundaries are a statement of self-respect. They tell others that you value yourself enough to protect your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. They say, I am worthy of respect and I will not allow anyone to infringe on my peace. Without boundaries, we may find ourselves constantly bending to the needs of others, sacrificing our own well-being in the process. We may feel like we're endlessly giving but never receiving in return. This imbalance can lead to burnout, resentment, and the loss of our own identity. When we draw a boundary, whether it's saying no to a request that drains us, asking for space when we need it, or demanding honesty in a relationship, we are acknowledging our own worth. We are saying that our peace, our time, and our emotions are valuable, and we will not give them away freely or to those who do not respect that value. The courage to set boundaries. Setting boundaries is not easy. It requires courage because it often involves confronting the fear of conflict, rejection, or guilt. We are conditioned, especially as women, to be nurturing and accommodating. Society has taught us that being nice means saying yes, even when we know it is not in our best interest. But a wise woman knows that the pursuit of peace does not mean sacrificing her inner harmony. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing she can do for herself and others. The fear of disappointing others or creating tension can make it hard to establish boundaries. We worry about being seen as rude or selfish. But true wisdom lies in the understanding that boundary setting is not about creating distance or alienating others. It's about protecting our own energy so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves. When we set a boundary, we are not rejecting the person. We are rejecting the behavior or expectation that is harmful to us. For example, a wise woman might recognize that a certain friend or family member constantly demands her attention at the expense of her own needs. Instead of continuing to give, she might establish the boundary of only answering calls at certain times or limiting the duration of conversations. This may feel uncomfortable at first, but over time it becomes a natural way to preserve her own peace. And the truth is, by setting this boundary, she is teaching others how to treat her with respect. Boundaries as a tool for healthy relationships. Boundaries are not just about protecting ourselves. They're also crucial for cultivating healthy, balanced relationships. When we fail to set boundaries, we set ourselves up for being taken advantage of or constantly drained by the demands of others. By setting clear boundaries, we communicate what is acceptable and what is not, and this fosters mutual respect. For instance, in a romantic relationship, a wise woman will establish boundaries around her personal time and space. She will not tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or manipulation. If her partner crosses these boundaries, she will speak up, not from a place of anger, but from a place of clarity and self-respect. A healthy relationship is built on trust and respect, and boundaries are essential to maintaining these qualities. In friendships, boundaries allow us to engage in meaningful, reciprocal connections. A wise woman will choose to surround herself with people who respect her boundaries and who, in turn, have boundaries of their own. When both parties respect each other's needs, communication becomes more open, trust is strengthened, and the relationship grows in depth and authenticity. Boundaries and emotional energy. Our emotional energy is finite, and when we don't have boundaries in place, we often give away more than we have. We might say yes to requests that drain us, tolerate toxic behavior, or allow ourselves to be pulled into other people's drama. The result? Emotional exhaustion, resentment, and burnout. Boundaries act as a filter for our emotional energy. They allow us to choose where to invest our time and energy. A wise woman knows that her emotional health is essential for her well-being, and she will protect it by setting limits with those who deplete her. This may mean saying no to toxic conversations, distancing herself from individuals who consistently bring negativity into her life, or refraining from offering emotional labor to people who are unwilling to give back. It's important to remember that setting boundaries is not just about saying no. It's also about saying yes to the things and people that nourish us. When we set boundaries, we create space for the relationships, activities, and experiences that lift us up. This is an act of self-care. By protecting our emotional energy, we can show up fully in the areas of our lives that truly matter. Boundaries are fluid, not rigid. An important thing to understand about boundaries is that they are not rigid. Life is dynamic, and so are our needs. A wise woman knows that her boundaries may evolve depending on the season of life she is in. What might have been an acceptable boundary last year might need to shift this year based on her growth and changing circumstances. So this is an interesting thought experiment. While sometimes 5-year-old Joey would be like, who cares? Like, it's Cheetos is what matters. Boundaries are flexible, and they require ongoing self-awareness. As we grow, we learn more about ourselves and what we need to feel safe, supported, and respected. A boundary that felt right at one point in time may no longer serve us, and that's okay. Being able to adjust boundaries as needed is a sign of emotional maturity and self-awareness. Conclusion: boundaries as a path to empowerment. The power of boundaries lies in their ability to restore our sense of self. They are not about shutting others out. They are about creating a space where we can thrive, where we can be our authentic selves, and where we can contribute to the world from a place of fullness, not depletion. A wise woman understands that boundaries are a form of self-respect, self-care, and self-love. They empower her to step into her power with clarity, purpose, and peace. By setting healthy boundaries, she not only protects her peace, but also encourages those around her to respect her time, energy, and emotional health. And in a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, the act of setting boundaries is an act of resistance. It's a statement that we will no longer be passive recipients of others' demands. Instead, we take control of our own lives, our own energy, and our own well-being. Boundaries are not walls. They are the foundation of a life well living, a life of intention, respect, and authentic connection. In a world that often rewards conformity and compliance, choosing authenticity over people pleasing is one of the most empowering decisions a person, especially a woman, can make. At its core, authenticity is about showing up as your true self, honoring your values, beliefs, needs, and emotions without fear of judgment or rejection. People pleasing, on the other hand, is the act of modifying or suppressing one's true self to meet the expectations or desires of others, often at the expense of personal well-being and self-respect. A wise woman understands that living authentically is not only essential for her own happiness, but also for cultivating relationships that are genuine, meaningful, and fulfilling. She knows that being true to herself is not selfish, but rather a necessary practice for healthy boundaries, clear communication, and personal growth. The cost of people pleasing. People pleasing often stems from a deep-seated fear of rejection, conflict, or disapproval. We may feel compelled to say yes when we really want to say no, or act in ways that align with others' desires, even if it means sacrificing our own. On the surface, people pleasing might seem harmless. After all, who doesn't want to be liked or appreciated? But the hidden cost is high. When we constantly bend to meet the needs of others, we lose touch with who we truly are. We can become resentful, frustrated, and overwhelmed by the emotional labor we invest without receiving anything in return. Over time, this erodes our self-esteem and confidence as we feel like we are living for others instead of for ourselves. People-pleasing becomes a form of self-neglect, and it keeps us trapped in a cycle of seeking external validation while neglecting our own internal needs. Moreover, when we suppress our true feelings or desires to avoid upsetting others, we dishonor our own voice. We may feel disconnected from ourselves and others, and as a result, our relationships may lack depth and authenticity. Authentic connections are built on honesty and vulnerability, and when we are constantly trying to meet other people's expectations, we are unable to show up fully and authentically. The power of authenticity. Authenticity is not just a buzzword. It's a way of living that is rooted in self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-respect. A wise woman recognizes that living authentically means being true to her own values, beliefs, and desires, even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular. It's about showing up in the world with courage and vulnerability, knowing that not everyone will agree with her, and that's okay. She understands that her worth is not determined by the approval of others, but by her own sense of alignment with her values and inner truth. When we choose authenticity over people-pleasing, we open the door to deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Authenticity invites others to be real with us, creating space for mutual respect and genuine connection. Instead of constantly worrying about what others think, we learn to trust our instincts and listen to our inner voice. We recognize that the opinions of others do not define us, and we let go of the need for constant validation. Authenticity also brings clarity and peace. When we live authentically, we are not carrying the burden of pretending to be someone we're not. We don't need to constantly adjust ourselves to fit into someone else's mold or expectation. This liberation from the need to please others allows us to focus on our own growth, happiness, and well-being. Authenticity in action. Setting boundaries with grace. One of the most powerful ways to live authentically is by setting boundaries with grace. A wise woman understands that boundaries are an essential component of authenticity. Without them, it becomes nearly impossible to remain true to ourselves, as we may find ourselves constantly compromising our needs to meet the expectations of others. Boundaries are a reflection of what we are willing to accept in our lives and how we want to be treated. For example, when a friend or family member makes a request that feels overwhelming or goes against her values, a wise woman can say no without guilt. She doesn't have to justify her decision, and she doesn't need to feel bad for prioritizing her own needs. She knows that saying no is not a rejection of the person, but a declaration of self-respect. By honoring her boundaries, she is staying true to herself and maintaining the integrity of her relationships. The role of vulnerability and authenticity. Living authentically also requires vulnerability, the willingness to show up as we are, imperfections and all. This is often the hardest part, especially in a world that values perfection and success. But vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a source of strength and connection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for others to do the same. And in doing so, we foster genuine relationships that are based on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. A wise woman knows that vulnerability is an essential part of living authentically. She is not afraid to express her emotions, share her true thoughts, or admit her struggles. She understands that vulnerability creates space for healing, growth, and deeper connection. It's through our willingness to be vulnerable that we can connect with others on a profound level and experience true intimacy. The freedom of living authentically. One of the greatest gifts of living authentically is the freedom it brings. When we stop living to please others, we free ourselves from the chains of external validation. We are no longer tethered to the expectations and judgments of others. Instead, we learn to trust ourselves, make decisions that align with our values, and live in alignment with our true purpose. This freedom allows us to pursue our passions, take risks, and embrace our full potential. It empowers us to create a life that is uniquely ours, not a life that is shaped by the desires and expectations of others. We stop seeking approval and start seeking fulfillment. We choose to live in alignment with our authentic self, and in doing so, we inspire others to do the same. Conclusion: embracing authenticity in a world that demands perfection. In a world that often pressures us to conform and fit in, authenticity is a revolutionary act. Choosing authenticity over people-pleasing is not always easy, but it is always worth it. A wise woman knows that by embracing her true self, she will attract the relationships, opportunities, and experiences that align with her values and purpose. She understands that living authentically is not about being perfect. It's about being real, being honest, and being true to who she really is. When we prioritize authenticity over people-pleasing, we create lives that are grounded in self-respect, clarity, and peace. We cultivate relationships that are genuine and meaningful, and we empower ourselves to live with purpose and intention. The power of authenticity is not just in how it transforms our lives, but in how it inspires others to do the same. By choosing authenticity, we create a ripple effect that encourages the world around us to embrace its own truth. So let us choose authenticity. Let us let go of the need to please and instead honor our true selves. In doing so, we will live lives of greater fulfillment, connection, and peace. In a world that constantly demands noise, opinions, reactions, responses, and explanations, it is easy to overlook the profound power that silence holds. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness or passivity, but in reality, it is a tool of immense personal strength. It is in silence that we find clarity, peace, and the space to reconnect with our inner truth. For a wise woman, silence is not the absence of action, but the presence of choice, reflection, and intentionality. Silence is one of the most potent expressions of personal power because it allows us to listen more deeply, think more clearly, and act with purpose. In the silence, we are not reacting to the world around us, but instead we are responding from a place of wisdom and inner knowing. Silence as a tool for self-reflection. The first and perhaps most important role of silence is its ability to offer us the time and space for self-reflection. In our fast-pacing world, we often run on autopilot, constantly moving from one task to the next, engaging in conversations, answering emails, and fulfilling the needs of others. We can get so caught up in the needs of life that we lose touch with our own thoughts, emotions, and needs. Silence gives us the chance to step back and ask ourselves important questions. What do I truly want? What are my values? What emotions am I carrying that I need to address? In the quiet, we can hear our inner voice, which often gets drowned out by the opinions and demands of the world. It is in moments of silence that we connect with our deeper selves and gain the clarity necessary to make decisions aligned with our values and purpose. When a wise woman chooses silence, she is not disengaging from life, but is instead taking a moment to reconnect with her essence. Silence allows her to assess situations, reflect on her choices, and understand her emotions without the external noise of distractions or influences. This kind of self-reflection is the foundation of personal power because it empowers her to make decisions that are in alignment with who she truly is, not based on external pressures or fleeting emotions. Silence is a form of emotional regulation. This pause is critical because it allows her to distance herself from the emotional charge of the moment and approach the situation with a calm, clear mind. By choosing silence, she gains control over her emotional responses and can act from a place of intentionality, not emotional reactivity. This is a key component of personal power, being able to regulate emotions and respond with maturity and wisdom, rather than being at the mercy of every emotional wave that comes her way. Silence in moments of conflict also allows us to listen more deeply to others. Often, when we're caught up in our own emotions or in the heat of the moment, we stop listening and start thinking about what we're going to say next. By choosing silence, we create space for others to express themselves fully. This not only strengthens communication, but also builds empathy, as we are able to truly hear and understand the other person's perspective. Silence can transform conflict into a meaningful conversation by inviting reflection and understanding rather than escalation. Silence as a boundary-setting tool. A wise woman knows that silence can be one of the most powerful ways to set boundaries. In relationships, there are times when words are not necessary, when the mere act of withholding a response or disengaging speaks volumes. Silence in these moments communicates a clear message that certain behaviors or conversations are unacceptable. For example, when someone is being disrespectful or manipulative, a wise woman may choose silence as her response rather than getting caught up in a back and forth argument. In choosing silence, she is not giving away her power by engaging in the drama. Instead, she is signaling that she will not tolerate behavior that undermines her peace or values. Silence becomes a way to protect herself from further harm, drawing a clear line between what is acceptable and what is not. Setting boundaries with silence also helps avoid unnecessary conflict. When we speak too much or too quickly, we may inadvertently invite more conflict or tension. However, by choosing silence in moments of potential confrontation, we can create the space needed to assess the situation, gather our thoughts, and respond when we are truly ready. In doing so, we maintain our personal power by controlling the flow of the conversation and asserting our needs without engaging in unnecessary drama. Silence as a form of presence. Silence also enhances our ability to be present in a world that constantly urges us to be doing, achieving, or talking. Silence offers a rare opportunity to simply be. When we embrace silence, we invite ourselves to be fully present in the moment, free from distractions and expectations. In this presence, we connect with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us on a deeper level. For a wise woman, silence can be a grounding force. When she is quiet and still, she is not thinking about the future or dwelling on the past. She is fully immersed in the now. This deep presence fosters a sense of peace and stability that comes from within, not from external circumstances. Silence allows her to be in the moment with clarity and authenticity, free from the need to constantly perform or prove her worth. This presence extends to her interactions with others as well. In a conversation, a wise woman might use silence not only to reflect, but to allow space for the other person's voice. By listening without interruption, she shows respect for the other person's thoughts and feelings. Silence becomes a powerful form of communication, signaling to others that their words matter and that she is fully engaged in the exchange. Silence as a source of strength. Perhaps one of the most empowering aspects of silence is that it is a direct reflection of strength. In a society that values constant communication and outward expression, choosing silence can be seen as an act of profound inner strength. It shows that we are not dependent on the approval, opinions, or validation of others to feel secure. A wise woman knows that her worth is not defined by how much she speaks or how often she is heard. Her worth comes from within. Silence allows her to take the time to tune into her own voice, to reflect on her purpose, and to align her actions with her inner values. By choosing silence over noise, she demonstrates that she is in control of her own energy, her own presence, and her own truth. She does not need to fill every moment with words or noise in order to be powerful. Her quiet confidence speaks for itself. In moments of silence, a wise woman reconnects with her intuition, her strength, and her ability to navigate life with grace. She is not afraid of the quiet because she understands its power. It is in the silence that she gains clarity, processes her emotions, and makes decisions that are in alignment with her true self. Conclusion: embracing silence as a path to personal power. The role of silence in personal power is immense and transformative. It is through silence that we find the space to reflect, regulate our emotions, set boundaries, and be fully present in our lives. Silence allows us to listen more deeply to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. It is in silence that we discover our strength, our clarity, and our true sense of self. A wise woman understands that silence is not an absence but a presence of power. She embraces the quiet moments, knowing that they hold the potential for growth, reflection, and transformation. By choosing silence, she creates space for herself and others to be authentic, grounded, and empowered. In a world full of noise, silence becomes her most powerful tool for navigating life with intention, peace, and strength. In a world that constantly demands our attention, our voices, and our energy, it is easy to forget the profound power that lies within silence. But true strength is not always loud. It is often found in the quiet moments of reflection, self-regulation, and deliberate action. The wise woman knows that silence is not the absence of power. It is the presence of clarity, strength, and authenticity. As you move forward in your life, remember that silence is your ally. It is in the silence that you can hear your inner voice, regulate your emotions, set clear boundaries, and show up as your true self. Do not fear the quiet. It is where your wisdom grows, your power strengthens, and your purpose becomes clearer. By embracing silence, you reclaim your personal power, cultivate deeper relationships, and live with intention and grace. So choose silence when it calls to you. In the stillness, find your strength. In the pause, find your clarity. And in the quiet moments, find your true power. For it is through silence that we discover the depth of who we are and the limitless potential within us. Thank you.